Welcome to the Burn Up Podcast, where we discuss all things agile software development and delivery.
We will be giving you an honest take on tools and techniques. We'll share our experiences, debunk myth, and hopefully provide needed inspiration.
Hi, I'm Todd Anderson, Consultant Delivery Manager. I've done just about every job in IT, from tech support, programmer, network security, project and program management. I can't say I've done everything, but I've seen a lot.
And I'm Marcel Bridge, digital consultant, business analyst and product owner. I've worked in digital before this even had a name, and since have been quite a bit around the block. And this is my way of giving back to the industry.
So sit back, relax, and settle in for this week's episode.
Apologies, this recording was taped outside and you may experience some ambient noise. We hope that this doesn't disturb your listening experience too much and you still find it informative and entertaining. Hello and welcome to the Burn Up. As in the last episode, I'll be speaking with my colleague Swathi Poddar. Our colleague Todd has just arrived back in the UK, so he won't be joining us today. Swathi and I will be talking about the role of the business analyst and the role of the product owner. We're doing this from the pool in my hotel in Bangalore, hence the ambient noise of birds and traffic. And we hope you guys can still understand as well. Swathi, for those guys who haven't listened to the last episode and who don't know you, do you quickly want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Swathi Poddar. I'm a business analyst, product owner and a software consultant. I work from India for most part, but I've also traveled to UK and the US quite often for the clients. I guess that's me.
Shall we jump right into the topic?
Let's do it.
Cool.
As always, if you haven't got the time to listen to the full thing, here is a summary. Successful projects are based on a clear understanding of the domain, specifically goals and needs, and how to satisfy these with a solution within the given constraints. Think time, money, regulatory, etc. With the product owner hat on, we take care of the upfront bit, meaning the focus on strategic fit, while with the business analyst hat on, we focus more on the nitty-gritty detail of the solution. But really, both roles are just a different focus on the same spectrum. In practice, they can be taken on by the same or different individuals, whatever your project needs. Ultimately, both roles are about making sense of the problem domain, enabling teams to articulate complexity, explore items under discussion, and converge towards a clear and valuable outcome. As with most roles in the 21st century, knowledge of tools and techniques, how to do things, are being downgraded to hygiene factors, while approach and mindset, how to go about things, specifically communication and collaboration, become factors of excellence. Consequently, the business analyst and product owner are key roles for any well-run project.
Swathi, what do you think? What is the role of the business analyst or product owner? Like, what do you say to your mum? What do you do?
Oh, to my mom, I would love to tell her that I'm in meetings all day. She might think that I'm overpaid for no reason. But this is how I explained to her. I said, if I were, say, an architect or an interior designer, I would talk to my customers. I would understand what they want, and then I would design things the way they like to, which someone else will kind of implement, basically. Someone else will carry that design forward and then work it out. So I'm basically the middleman.
And I think this is an interesting one because I kind of understand what you say. So I guess we sit between the clients, the users, and the implementation teams. We mediate, we facilitate, we drive in the right direction. We help people make their minds up. We help them get to grips with complex situations, information. But I think somehow the analogy with the architect is a bit of a not applicable one because we have in the industry something that's called the architect role, so they solution design. So when you say you design the solution, is this part of a business analyst job to design the solution? Or do you
no, not at all. I don't think design is part of our job at all. It's about conveying the requirements to the team is where we come in.
Conveying the need and then, yes. Now, this is an interesting thing because I've worked with developers who didn't like, for whatever reason, being told what to do or work with other people. And then their point is always like, I can think myself, I can speak to the customer directly, why do I need you in the mix?
So I guess the question is, what value do we add as business analysts?
I think in smaller teams, it basically works, or like startups or smaller organizations,
Yes.
where the developers themselves talk to the clients and then get stuff sorted. But I think as the organization grows, if you're working in a big organizations, I think people do need us so that the developers can just focus on what they need to do, and we get to focus on the business side aspects of everything. And then
It's just too much information, right, to process, too many people to interact with. I think there's another thing, though. I think you're maybe underselling the role, I think. Because I think what we do a lot as well, and I've seen this working with you, I've seen this obviously working with other people, is not everyone is, as you and I think you would agree with that, can't really write beautiful code, although we've tried, and maybe, I'm not sure about you, but...
I'm terrible at it.
See, same here.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of developers, not all of them, or a lot of other people, can't necessarily do the analysis bit right, or maybe... And we'll come to this when we talk a little bit more about like what do we actually do in practice and what good looks like. But I think there's a certain skill to this which we bring to the table, which is about reading between the lines, making sense of the client is throwing a lot of things at you. They might sometimes not even know what they need, right?
Oh,
so
that I agree with. There are a lot of times where they wouldn't know what they need, and we kind of
tease it out, right?
Yeah, basically. And then we tell them, oh, by the way, this is what you want, and then they kind of agree to it at a later point. But yeah.
And I think this is an interesting point you just made. So in big organizations or big old school consultancies, the business analyst role is often seen as a junior role, and it's seen as a role, a scribe, where it's a bit like the waiter in the restaurant, where the waiter comes to you and with the notepad, it's like, madam, what would you like to eat? And he notes it down. Whereas I think the role we do is a far more, maybe the customer is just hungry, and you help them figure out what's healthy for them, what they actually enjoy eating. Do they want a big meal or a small meal? Have they got children with them? So it's that entire discussion. And then maybe if they want pizza, but you haven't pizza there, or their budget doesn't allow them to eat certain things, then maybe you nudge them in the right direction. I mean, there is a need which the client may not have really understood, and there are solution options, and you help them drive them towards the right solution options for them within the constraints of the project, I guess.
Yeah. The other thing I've noticed is not all the developers, but I've been in calls, client calls basically, and I have developers on the call who speak about how to do something instead of talking about what and why that needs to be done.
Nice.
And that's where we come in basically, because we need to not have that conversation very early, because it doesn't make sense. We first need to find out what they actually want before you derive how you go about it.
Because you might implement the totally wrong thing, right?
I've been in that position many times where, need to take a pause in that conversation and say, hey, is this something we can discuss later? Because let's find out what we need to do in the first place. That's happened quite often.
It's really good. You remember yesterday over lunch, we spoke to one of our colleagues, and he's working with one of our clients in India, and he said, I think there were like 20 or 30 features they wanted, and he was like, why do you need that? And they're like, well, our customers want it. And then he spoke to those customers, and they're like, yeah, of course we want it, but we wouldn't be using this for the next 12 months. We might want it in the future. And
absolutely.
So yeah, you could easily just design the wrong thing, whereas you need someone to focus everyone onto achievement of goals. So the definition of the BA for me is kind of more a spectrum of roles. So you have systems analysts on one side, deep in the technology, in APIs, data analysts maybe, analyzing system interfaces, and then you have got the more not mid-level in terms of experience, but mid-range BA who is looking at requirements, non-functional requirements, functional requirements, writing stories, helping the team, facilitating, and then you've got further up that spectrum, you go more into business strategy, so away from technology. This is where the product owner comes in, where you focus on user needs, business value, business needs, business strategy, where you do your roadmaps, etc. Does that kind of match how you think about the role? Because I know we spoke about this, and you have started as, like I have, as classic business analyst, writing requirements, stories, waterfall maybe in the past, and I think now we've moved a bit more into the product side of things. It just seems like a natural progression in your career.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as a BA, I only focused about what my team is delivering, and then it's done at the end of the day. I think as a product owner, what I've realized working with you, of course, is that we kind of share the product vision. So we know so many details about, like multiple features or how this entire thing comes together, basically.
Yeah.
And I guess that's primary difference of being a product owner. The other things like prioritization, scoping, roadmaps, there are a lot of things that a product owner deals with that a business analyst doesn't have to bother if there are multiple teams working on it.
Correct. I think it's as you just said, it's a move away from technology to a business strategy, right? That's kind of the spectrum, and people sit somewhere on that spectrum, and there's no right or wrong. I don't think there should be considered more senior or junior. It's just a different way of thinking, different way of helping the project. And I think these are soft factors, right? So there are some soft skills that you need to have. I think empathy is something that comes into this, like being able to put yourself in the shoes of a client, of an organization that needs to deliver. Being able, I think, to make sense and handle complex information that changes frequently. I think you've just ran 2 delivery teams across 2 locations in our last project, and I think there was a lot of context shifting for you going on. How did you find that? Is that's surely something that's part of our role, right?
Definitely. Hey, it was actually fun. I thought it'd be stressful, but it was.
I mean, how did you find this context shifting between, because you were not only working on one feature at a time, you sometimes had 3 or 4 features in different stages running. Did you feel that is that something that you just bring, or is that something which you would expect from a business analyst to kind of be able to jump topics quite quickly?
I think context switching is one of the important things for a business analyst. I have been a BA for like 8 or 9 years, can't remember, but I've always been able to do it, so I think I've taken it for granted that all BAs would need to do it.
It's hard to teach, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes people ask me, how do you do it? I'm like, I don't know. It's how your brain works. And,
Yeah.
and that's maybe the point. Some people write beautiful code, some people analyze information beautifully and can context shift, and some can't. And again, that's why we work together with different people. So that's kind of the soft skills side. And then I think there are hard skills as well. So hard skills, I mean, quite often, and it would be interesting what you think about this, quite often people come to me and it's like, as a BA, you need to be able to write user stories. Yeah, you do, but I'm not massively impressed by that skill because I think it's a teachable skill. I know, would you agree, or I don't know, do you think there are any hard skills in terms of, people ask me, what software do I need to learn, what techniques do I need to learn? Do you think this is majorly important, or is it just something that you bring along as a hygiene factor that's just there? When I get asked by people, what makes a good BA, quite often they're like, what tools do I need to learn? As in, do I need to know UML? Do I need to know rational rows? Do I need to know Visio? Do I need to know Excel? Do I need to know how to write user stories? Do I need to know Gherkin Cucumber? I personally am not massively fussed about these things because I think that's things that if someone has the right mindset, and we'll come about mindset, we talk about mindset in a second, these things are learnable. I can teach that to anyone who's intelligent quite quickly.
Yeah.
Am I, again, oversimplifying here? Because you and I have been doing this for years, or would you agree that it's not that important really? There's other things that are more important.
No, it's not that important. So when I was interviewed for a role of BA, like my first job as a BA, knowing rational rows, to do use cases, class diagrams, all this was important, I think, at that point of time, but we have now, I don't think that is necessary right now. I guess I don't think interviews these days, they look at how you approach a particular problem.
Yes.
It's not about if you can draw class diagrams or use cases, or
I mean, these
if you
things
can
help, right? But
it helps. And even with respect to user stories, right? I mean, I know that you have an opinion about the user stories I write about not being API story and a UI story, but I have worked with different dev teams, and different teams need different level of stories. There's some devs who would like, why are you not giving more information? And some devs are like, I'm not a code monkey, let me do some analysis for myself. So even, it's good that you know how to write user stories, especially the Cucumber format, the given when thens, but it will change with the team you're working with. You just can't say that this is how I work and you deal with it. It doesn't work that way. So no, not.
And the same with software, right? I mean, we've used Visio in the past. I'm not sure I've not touched Visio in the last 5 years because it's all like cloud-based stuff. So we use Draw.io and
and I hate that tool, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan either. But but these things move on. Exactly. Interesting what you said about adapting to different people's needs. And I think this is for me, so we've got soft skills, which we said are super important, interaction with other people. Hard skills, we've said, well, it's not like as important as a developer to know how to code properly. And even coding, arguably, it's not about knowing Scala or knowing Java, it's knowing how to write code. And then the language you choose is relatively irrelevant, I'm being told, by good developers. So there's the third thing to me, which is mindset. And I think that's maybe the most important. So you said you need to be able to adapt. I think you need to be able to work in an agile way. So focus on value, deliver incrementally. I struggle with that a lot. So when I interview people, I've interviewed with your colleagues here recently, a couple of guys. And what quite often happens is that the candidates jump right into the solution, as you said before, rather than be like, hang on, why are we doing this? What's the right thing? So it's and then how do we help the client to build this up in stages, because it is a reaction that needs to be expected from a client, that they want everything now.
Yep.
And maybe more than they need and more than they can afford, certainly. So how do we help them to, what you said earlier, prioritization? How do we help them get there incrementally and learn on the way, and maybe not do things that are not relevant right now? Do you find, what else would you say is, from that perspective, mindset makes a good BA? So if you, I know you interview people as well, how do you, again, what makes, if you look at a candidate, I think we can quite quickly tell whether someone is good or not, but what's the indicators? And maybe also what's the counter indicators, where you're like, nah, done?
I think the way someone introduces themselves during an interview and how relaxed and chill they are, it kind of sets the tone for the interview.
And why is this important? Because one could say this is just an interview, but I think it is important because as a consultant, you're constantly in front of clients.
Exactly. That's exactly my thought process. So
yeah.
I remember being super nervous before interviews, but during an interview, I think I have somehow managed to maintain my cool. Thank God for that. And I would expect the same from people I want to work with. I want them to be calm and cool, and in front of difficult clients, it helps.
Yes.
The other factor would be that when a case study is given, how they ask you questions, or because we do kind of this role play where I play the client and they are kind of asking me questions about what I want in the product. How they approach it is very important to me. If they're gonna straight dive in and say, oh, we can do this for you, or because the case study is familiar with something that's out there in the market, they have this tendency to jump right into the solution. And that has happened quite a lot, and I think that's where I'm like, oh no.
And this is interesting because you said case study, but a case study is, technically speaking, nothing different than a brief a client gives you, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So again, whether you're in an interview scenario or in front of the client, it's the same thing.
Same thing, yeah.
You are teasing out information of the client, and by doing that well, when we spoke about this, I think, the other day, by doing that well, you show the client that you care about the business, that you understand the business. Here's actually an interesting thing. Sorry, this is a bit beside the topic, but I think we should talk about this. Do you feel domain knowledge is important for a BA? Because I'm asking this, that there are the big consultancies, they have their verticals, right?
Yeah.
And you work in finance, you work in energy, you work whatever, in medical. I have domain experience just because I've worked a lot in automotive, and I know you have domain experience in certain things because you worked in government. But we've also on this project worked in finance, and we didn't have much experience with exactly what we're doing at this stage. And some people could think that's a weakness. I think it's a strength, and I'll explain in a second why, but I want to hear from you. What do you think?
I think it's a strength because we're actually walking in without any assumptions or, it's just we're starting fresh.
Agreed.
We want to know more, and we have no idea what that particular domain is for. And we ask more questions to the client, no matter how stupid or trivial the question is. We don't hold back. We ask them, we find out more information. But if you already know the domain, you might hold back. Maybe, I don't know.
You're making assumptions, you're second guessing, and sometimes we ask questions where the client's like, well, fuck, I've been 10 years in the industry, I have no idea how to answer them. But like, maybe we should look into that, right?
Exactly.
Totally valid point.
But I do see job description that says have the domain experience, like 5 years in this, and I mean, like, really?
So this is maybe where the concern with no domain experience comes from. Have you been in a situation where a client got annoyed with you because you asked too many questions? I've worked with in companies where engagement managers or client services people were very concerned about you asking too many questions which the client could find annoying. And I've always called bullshit on that, because I think that's, if you can't ask the client questions, and maybe if you need to the same question multiple times, the client is an idiot. Apologies for all clients listening to this. But the good clients I've worked with, and they were literally all of them, engaged in a discussion, and they needed to explain to you things 2 or 3 times. There was a reason why it wasn't clear, and it was a good thing for them as well. I'm not sure if you come across similar things where clients got annoyed, or...
Not really, no.
See, that's the thing. I think this is a made-up problem.
Yeah, I guess so.
And people like to talk about their business, right? It's not.
Yeah, I think it's weird somebody wouldn't like to talk unless they don't have knowledge about it. It's a very
but this is a different problem then, and this is a good point then to ask the questions, because then you're pointing out, not blaming them, but that there is a...
that we need somebody else who can drive decisions.
Yeah, exactly. Swathi, how did you become a BA? Because people ask this a lot. How do I become a BA? And is there a clear career path? We know for developers, there are very clear career path, right? What was your career path like?
Well, I started off as a developer, and I realized I'm a very bad developer. But I did get to work with a business analyst in my first organization, which is very lucky because I understood that this is something I can be good at.
And where you were before you worked with that person, that role existed?
No, not at all. It was
interesting.
super new at that point. And I was looking for a postgraduation course actually. And I found a course that matches what I wanted to do.
Which was at London City College, right?
City University, yeah.
City University, yeah.
Yeah, that was brilliant. And then, and I came back to India after that, and then I've been working as a BA, PO, Scrum Master since then.
And so that postgrad degree was a degree in proper business analysis. So you're like a master's of business analysis or something like that? Yeah, okay.
It's project management, UX, BA work. I mean, it just touched all the relevant, roles basically?
Areas,
It was such a fun course, yeah.
Okay, this is interesting. So you would recommend this to someone who is maybe in their earlier stages of their career and wants to go somewhere into analysis, business analysis. You'd be like, yeah, it sounds like you have taken a lot from that course.
Yeah, it set a tone and it kind of changed the approach. I would recommend that course. It's not for people who already have experience. Like, I would never recommend that to you because you already know all that. It's like been there, done that. But for folks who are looking to become a business analyst, I would definitely recommend that. Yeah.
Because with me it's different. So I have an engineering degree, but not IT specific, more in cross media. This was before the internet even started, and then the internet came along, and I did like literally everything you do in small organizations. So design, coding, project management, a little bit like you. And then I realized this is not really what I'm good at. But there are some other things, and this was more looking at the analysis side of things and strategic thinking, but there wasn't a role around for this, and there wasn't even UX wasn't a thing back then. We just had designers, and then I did an MBA because I was more interested in the business side. But again, an MBA is something that just expands your view, like it did for you with the business analysis specific things. It expanded my view on business strategy, on marketing, on human resource management, etc., which was really helpful. And again, I would recommend this for anyone more on the junior side of things. But again, if you're super, super senior, maybe not that relevant. And then in one of my projects, my boss said, we'll change titles, you'll be a business analyst. And I'm like, what I've been doing, that's called business analysis. And then I started reading up on stuff, and I found, my way into waterfall ways of working and UML modeling, etc., etc. And then over time, everything changed into agile. And I think the key thing for us is I think to work with good people and inspiring people, and there's so much
changing. And with
changing.
good clients too, not always on a hand stuff.
Really good point. Exactly. Work on good projects. Don't just work with, where they burn you out and where you do the same thing all the time. You need to move on. You need to learn new things. So to wrap this up, maybe. So if you had to say what you're doing on a day, on a typical day, in like 2 or 3 sentences, what do you do? What does a day like that look like as a BA or PO?
If I say I am in meetings all day, doesn't make it sound like I do nothing all day, because that's not
that's not true.
No, I think my current role is kind of a mixture of a BA, PO and a Scrum Master. So other than speaking to the clients, getting things sorted, prioritized, making everything is part of the roadmap. I also work with dev teams, story grooming, user stories, kicking them off,
Answering
discussions,
queries, questions, right?
Yeah, basically. And that's how a normal day looks like, which is more than how it sounds like, by the way.
Yeah, which is interesting because my day looks slightly different just because the way when we joined the project, I joined earlier, so I'm more kind of a bit more top-level strategic, and you're more working with people who actually deliver something.
Yeah.
Just because how this has unfolded, so my day is a bit more looking maybe at with our project delivery lead, engagement manager, looking a little bit more at roadmaps, maybe structuring a little bit kind of more future forwards-looking things at far more high level, and then speaking with you and the other BAs to kind of align us as a team on what do we do next and what are the important things and flush out any dependencies. I think is a big thing that we kind of need to manage, and that can easily trip you up. But I think we both agree that, and this is not just because we are business analysts or product owners, that the role is really, really important for a good running team.
Yeah.
It's not just vanity or that we're worried about our jobs. I think we would do different jobs if we thought these jobs were not valuable.
Yeah. So one of the first teams I've joined in my recent employment, they've actually said that we know what a BA does after we seen you working for the team. We have no idea how it all worked out, and they also said that now we have more time to design and implement stuff instead of worrying about talking to the client and getting business requirements.
Figuring out what you're supposed to do in the first place.
Exactly. So I think we play a very prominent role. Sometimes undervalued. Is that a right word? Basically?
I think that's fair. I've experienced that. Yeah.
Like people say, "Oh, you just write stories."
And you're expensive, right? Yeah. So why should we have you on the project? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's more than that. I guess we don't sell ourselves enough, I suppose. But,
yeah.
But that's true.
Swathi, thank you very much for having that chat with me.
Thank you for having me over again.
Yes, and hope this was interesting and you guys come back and listen again. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
That's it for today's episode. Have a look at our show notes with related information and details on how to get in touch at theburnup.com. We are listener driven, so please do send us your questions, comments, and ideas for new episodes.
We're both practitioners and are happy to discuss interesting opportunities from consulting to coaching to getting involved in actual projects. For inquiries, please visit burnupmedia.com. This podcast is produced by Burnup Media Limited under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 license, which means you can share it as long as you give credit, but you cannot change it or make money of it.
Until next time, thanks again for listening and have a wonderful day.